175 feet of frontage with 35,000 square feet of area. And we got the plan as shown, meets the requirements, and we request that you endorse the plan.
Okay. Yeah, so I read the purpose statement on the drawing on the bottom left. I thought it says the purpose of this plan is to divide remaining land on map 19 lot 1 and map 20 lot 100. As shown on the plan,
It's on TV over there.
book 538, page 45 into one Form A lot with remaining land. So I was under the impression that we were doing something with that 100 lots in the back. But it sounds like we're tonight only talking about lot 3.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the rest is just remaining land. The only way to make that land in the back and doing it with it would be to do a retreat lot or something of that nature. So that's not part of this process.
Okay, so normally you would require 250 feet of frontage with 43,560 square feet of square footage you do not have here. However, there's a letter here from the Dayton Water District saying that, dear God, the Dayton Water Commissioners meeting at August 15, 2023, the board approved the request of Attorney Roger to extend the water main on Park Street to supply, assuming that meant potable water, to a non-conforming Form A lot located at 0 Park Street, map 19 lot 1 and map 20 lot 100, tag 1. Should I fix this or what type over here? Once the district water moratorium has been lifted, the home will have 1 year to connect to district water. So this is going to lot 3?
That is correct.
Right now, I read an email here in part of the submission package that said that currently the water is at the existing barn area. Is that what's the deal right now?
That's correct. It's just before that. We're going to be extending it to lot 3.
Okay, and then that 100 by 100 box and that plot behind it, that's still not being discussed today?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm on the same page.
Of course.
Okay, awesome. So because you're getting the tie-in, that changes things. We're back to the standard zoning requirements, which is the 175 frontage, which you have, and 35,000 square feet, which you have, what is that? 180 by 1...
It's 35, 142.
35, 142. Oh, okay, that's for the entire lot. Which you, yep, so you just kind of neck out, it's like I'm treading water. Just really stick my head out. All right, so it seems pretty cut and dry to me. Gentlemen, anybody on the board have any questions? Start on this side. Mr. Woods?
Nothing.
Cunha?
None yet.
Nothing here? Okay. Any questions for us? It seems pretty straightforward.
Well, no, I appreciate your time.
Okay, hearing no questions or concerns, let's get a motion to approve the Form A application for this project at 23 Broadway, through Hart Street, map 19, lot 1, and map 20, lot 100-1. Motion made, second?
One second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion before taking to a vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No nays, no abstentions. Bye-bye, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Get the easy button. No easy button, no fashioned pen and ink, guys. We don't have... Okay, a little better. Thank you very much.
With that.
He fixed the microphone. just-in-time water district approval.
What's that?
Just-in-time water district approval.
Yeah.
I know. Like the one page going.
Right?
Sure, yeah. I gotta turn this around, remember the spelling.
I had to do it his name.
Yeah, I gotta look yours up all the time.
Yep.
All the time.
Thank you. You know the drill. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, next on the agenda is the site plan review for Isaacson Solar LLC, Michael Faro, 1543 Cedar Street, map 18, lot 12.
Good afternoon. How are you, everybody?
How are you?
Good. My name is Matt from Isaacson Solar. We're here tonight requesting a special permit for a small-scale ground-mounted solar installation. I did go through section 4600 of the bylaws that covers large and small-scale solar. I can cover those items as a bullet point as you guys address them in the bylaws and sort of tell you what we covered.
For a site plan review.
Say it again?
You need an application for a site plan review.
Site plan, not special
Not a
permit.
special permit.
I'm sorry, site plan review. My apologies.
Yeah. You got the easy button on this one, don't make it hard.
Yeah.
Do my best. If you'd like, I can go over the items I covered from section 4600.
Please do.
Sure. So first, small residential ground mount. It's going to be small scale, being under 50 kilowatts DC in nature. The system is only 14.4 kW. Also, no battery storage on this one. No battery storage. It's just strictly a solar system that's tied into the home's electrical system.
Okay.
And the last thing is, really that got listed for small scale that I saw as applicable to this was setbacks. So setbacks from the property line, we've got a minimum of 25 feet side and rear. We actually have a little over that. We have closer to 27.1 feet from the side, 68.6 from the rear property line. We also have setbacks to the wetlands followed. You can see my wetlands are flagged on the plot plan there. We have over 100 feet from the wetlands. We also followed the setback to the closest neighbor, which I believe was 1559 Cedar Street. It's about 225 feet away,
That's why I measured.
at the minimum. Yeah.
They required 100, so you're well away from that.
Yeah. Those were all of the major items I could see that were applicable to small scale in your bylaws, but I'm happy to answer any other questions while I'm here.
I also went through this, I'm very familiar with this section 2600. So I didn't, my big items were the, what you called out, the, at least 100 feet from the dwelling on another parcel. So you more than adequately cover that. I guess the one item I do want to ask, and I'll hand it over to the board after, is have you taken any consideration on where you have it placed on the property for any shading that might happen
We did.
from existing trees?
Yeah, we do a LiDAR study on every property, which essentially is going to tell us the projected shade coverage of the system, not only as built, but also for the next 25 years.
Okay.
We can see that if the vegetation continues to grow upwards, which those trees are already premature at that point in the back of the property, it's something that's going to be negligible shade-wise for this homeowner, for this homeowner shade-wise over the next 25 years.
Right.
But obviously, if they planted trees right in front of the system, I can't stop that, you know?
Okay.
But as is, we've taken into account all of the shading that is there and where it will be in the next 20 years. And
Okay.
it still posts a positive yield for the homeowner.
And you confirm that with a site visit?
Yeah, we confirm that with a site visit and then by doing like an actual modeling report, a LiDAR study, which takes into account anything that's on the property from buildings to trees to telephone poles, anything that would be a structure that comes above sea level or above ground level.
And I guess my other question too is in that same, more of a technical, professional curiosity question. I noticed that this design, is it 36 panels?
I believe so.
36 panels, all right, so 10 kW AC, 15 kW DC. This design has one inverter for the entire setup. Is that normal for this kind of thing, or do you not do micro packs?
We offer microinverters and we offer string inverters. The name of the game for us is limit the amount of maintenance calls you're going to need over 25 years. If this customer had 36 microinverters, which are individual inverters under every panel on the system, there's a good chance you'll need 36 service calls over 25 years if they all break once, which you kind of have to factor in for.
Right.
Whereas when we use a single string inverter, it's a one-time truck roll once every 10 to 20 years, as opposed to 36 separate ones.
Yeah, I just think of things like, well, you've already done your homework on the shading. So if you have microinverter in each one, if you get shading on a couple, it's only gonna affect a couple. If you get shading on a couple and you have one inverter, it's gonna affect the whole array.
If you didn't have microinverters under every panel,
Yeah.
you would be in a bad spot with shade. You're 100% right. Without microinverters, which are something we use on every single project, that makes it so the panel is able to perform by itself on a string.
Yeah,
So, for instance, if 10 of these 36 panels were shaded, the other 26 would still be working at full capacity. Only those 10 would be downgraded by the shade, or not producing as effectively with the shade.
with their microinverter.
Within Power Optimizer, which are what's actually on our projects.
Okay.
So we don't use microinverters, but we do use what's called a Power Optimizer. That's on every single panel. That's what controls, does it work if there's shade on the entire system or just on that one panel?
Prevents one panel from loading down the others around it.
Correct. Those weren't around 10 years ago when solar was really starting to get big over here and starting to take off, but now they're pretty commonplace for most companies.
Okay, yeah, just curiosity, because I was seeing the designs come across with one big inverter. I didn't know what was happening to prevent the loading down issue. Okay, no, great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Joe?
You asked all the questions.
Mr. Higgins? Chris? Mr. Woods?
No, I'm good.
So, so this is a site plan versus a special permit. It says it's zoned R1.
Yes, that was an error. It's supposed to be business.
Okay, that's what I
It is
thought.
business.
I thought it wasn't zone residential, and I saw on here it says R1, which would mean your opening statement would have been accurate.
Right. Close.
So, yeah, I have no concerns. This is, I've looked through the whole package, and pretty happy with the amount of detail we have here, and it looks like it's gonna be a very nice setup, good placement. And I have no concerns. So, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the, site plan review for Isaacson Solar LLC at 1543 Cedar Street. So moved. Motion made.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion before we take a vote? All right, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Five ayes.
Awesome.
Thank you very
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for the extra info.
So I will, have the decision written up and have the board sign, and then once that's done and timestamped with the town clerk, I'll send it off to you.
Gotcha. So nothing needed
It'll
for
be
me to
by
take home
email.
tonight. That's something I'll do in the coming
Unfortunately
week.
not.
Gotcha.
No grasshopper. Thank you. Have a good evening. I guess you know why I asked the shading question. Gotta do due diligence, not just rely on LiDAR. You gotta do a site visit. It's important. All right, so, I had status update of Serped and DHCD one-stop grant. Is that also on the agenda?
I did that on Dan's behalf.
Okay. Mr. Higgins, your item.
Yeah, I don't have the update myself, but I was
Okay.
requesting that we get an update actually Joe and I talked several weeks ago and
Okay.
wanted to know what the status
Mike
was.
said he was gonna get in touch with you. He didn't get that?
No.
Okay, I will reach out to him
Okay.
and have him reach out to you.
Nice.
My apologies.
Okay. So, the next items on the agenda are review zoning bylaw sections. Jim, I had you here to look at 5400, so we can take those out of order. We have to. Here for the night? Because we're here till like 10, 11.
Joe said we're leaving in 10 minutes, so.
Well, then we're leaving in 10 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna do the easy one first anyway. I'd like to look at 5400 site plan review.
Okay, sure.
So, we sent you, we had a few questions as we were going along.
I do as well, so.
Awesome, okay. So let me look at, which one do I have that's, this one's got my notes in it. I got copies of these. One day I'll have one, I don't know when. Okay, so, yeah, if you wanna hit your questions, and I can go back and see what other notes we had to ask you for feedback. So, Mr. Aguirre,
Okay,
go for it.
sure. So I think this is excellent. Thank you for putting the time and effort into it. I think with a little bit of reworking and discussion, I think it'll be a great document. So the first question I have is, we have a definition for multifamily in our zoning bylaws. I'm presuming that we're gonna stick with the definition that's in the bylaw, correct?
Where is that here?
Right in 5411?
Oh, 50, go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's not italicized, so I didn't know if you wanted to do that, because there's a definition is referenced in the zoning bylaw.
So it says construction. What did you want to change on there?
Typically, if you have something in the body of a bylaw that is in a definition, you would italicize it, because that's where you look to find out what a multifamily is.
Oh, so the word multifamily
Right.
is in the
Right.
glossary, and that should be
It
italicized.
is, right. Ironically, some of the other ones are not, but any that is, I think we should italicize. Just for the record, the multifamily definition of the zoning bylaw mirrors the building code, so
Okay.
there's no conflict.
All right. That's in 5411 and 5412, right?
5411, correct, and 5412, yes.
So we should italicize it. I don't think we do that anywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
No.
don't, no.
Okay, we can confer with,
No, we can do it. I
yeah.
just,
It typically is, I know
Yeah.
we're somewhat lax, but if we're starting to fix all these bylaws, maybe we should do it. So,
That's, it'd be nice to take that opportunity at that
well,
point.
what
Yeah.
it does is if someone tries to, have their interpretation of what that means, if we can reference what it was intended to be, which is the definition, it takes any discussion out of the equation. So it
Right.
removes,
So basically, whatever is in the definitions would be italics in the text
right.
of the
If you-
body?
If you reference a specific item that is in the definitions,
Okay,
then it should be italicized, yes.
okay, so I can go through the section of 5400.
Right,
and italicize anything that shows up in the back.
Yeah,
yep, okay,
Like,
Okay.
like frontage.
right, exactly, yes.
We should define frontage. Frontage is
As properties are dwindling, I'm finding a lot of people are getting more creative with what they're trying to do. So it would
It
just
says-
help me in my job to say, no, this is exactly what it means, so.
multifamily residential says a building that contains or will contain more than 3 apartment or condominium units.
Right,
It says multifamily residential.
And not to add extra work, but I mean, it's just formatting only.
Mhm.
No-
Yeah.
Changes nothing in the bylaws, so we could just, the whole thing could just be at some
Exactly.
point updated without any other.
Right.
Yeah, do we have to go to the state to say, go through the entire document cover to cover and make everything italic?
so I would have to double check with the Attorney General's office. My thought is no,
Okay.
but on something like that, I like to check with the Attorney General's office, because there were times when I had something not of the same, but it was like kind of similar, and they're
Okay.
like, nope, because if it was printed in the warrant that way, it has to be that way.
Okay.
okay,
So
Sure.
I'll have to double check with them.
okay. We can work on that, Kerry.
We
Okay.
can definitely
I
do,
don't wanna create a big issue, I'm
Right,
just.
no, I understand,
we can definitely do 5400, but I would love to hit the whole thing.
yeah.
So with procedures, I know you had a couple of questions, I have a couple of questions. Do you wanna go block by block? That way I don't go
Yeah.
through the whole
Oh,
document?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That'd be a good idea.
So in 5420, you have town engineer listed. I just want to clarify that in the absence of a town engineer on the payroll, that would mean a third-party reviewer? Was that the intent?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good, should we say instead of town engineer, it'll be, we put parentheses or peer review
Do slash peer review,
/ peer review firm?
peer review.
Yeah,
engineer?
you know, we may have an engineer on the payroll someday, I don't know, but we
Right.
don't currently. And I'll tell you why this is
And
important.
or,
Because some people assume that the highway superintendent is the town engineer.
right,
And I don't, so I want to make sure I know what your intent was. So,
yeah.
Yeah. The intent was, we didn't know that was important, so we didn't change it.
that's why we do this.
Yeah.
But if we just strike the word town and say engineer, it kind of covers us for whatever we have. A salaried person, a peer reviewer,
Well, town engineer assumes, yes, somebody on staff.
right, which is not true, but yeah.
You could just say,
Most big cities, the highway superintendent is an engineer.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. I do want to also clarify that if that was the intent, I wouldn't want to negate the highway superintendent from the process because the town driveway permits are issued by the highway superintendent. So I think that he or she, whoever it is, still needs to be involved.
well, it lists everybody, right? So it's like building commissioner, town engineer, and conservation commission. So if the intent is town engineer, I don't know if you can put in parentheses, or peer review firm, or whatever the terminology is, that way it covers both. If we do wind up getting a town engineer, what's that?
Do you want to look at some nomenclature of others and then we can
Yeah.
come up with something? I know you want to act on this tonight though, right? So maybe you can just, if you, with revisions, we can probably fix it.
Yeah.
Because I know you want to bring it to public hearing, right?
Yeah, we definitely want to
Yeah,
have it in
okay.
special.
Yeah, I'm not here to reinvent the wheel, I just want to make sure we try to do it right.
Okay.
And then, did you wanna add the highway superintendent? Is that what we were saying, or?
No, just leave it generic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in the last sentence, I know you had questions, I have questions. No building permit certificate of occupancy shall be issued by the building commissioner without the written approval of the site plan by the planning board unless 60 days lapse from the date submitted, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I don't have a problem with any of this. I think oversight is good. I just want to make sure that you understand that if you include a certificate of occupancy, and we're talking about a business, then you could potentially prohibit or delay that business from opening significantly if the planning board is then gonna sign off on the work. I don't have an issue with it. I think spreading things around is a great idea. I may not be here forever, so I think doing that gives us, spreads out the responsibility. But I would be concerned when you have employees, businesses, produce or product, et cetera, they know they're getting to a CO. The CO now can't be issued without your approval. That could delay things, especially if you miss a deadline, you could be out another month or
No,
a month.
we didn't add this. This was already here.
Right,
Yeah.
but we're talking about it, so we wanna make sure it's right.
Oh, I know,
right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we're not, the only, I guess the only, yeah, I mean, okay,
Right?
continue.
So with that said, if we're going to bring this to public meeting and re-energize it, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Is that what we want to do? Because if it is, then I tell you, it's gonna be a problem with businesses when it comes time to open.
But the site plan review usually happens early, and so it should,
But you're saying without written approval for the building permit and the certificate of occupancy. I've never come to the planning board for a certificate of occupancy approval.
but it says,
probably for that
no, it
reason.
says that this is how we conduct business now.
Right.
It says, no building permit or certificate of occupancy shall be issued by the building commissioner without written approval of the site plan by the planning board. Our only involvement is the site plan.
Okay, so we're not expanding that to
No,
you
nothing's
sign off
changing.
on the occupancy.
The only thing we wanted, no, absolutely not. No,
Okay,
we don't get involved,
okay.
we do not get involved in your building permit in OC.
Okay, so this is
Certificate of
only if the
occupancy.
site plan is applicable,
yes,
then it would prohibit the issuance of a occupancy permit without written approval.
of a site plan.
right, okay,
Our only knock here was the way, and you're gonna laugh, because we sat here and thought about this, and I even went to where is it, the lawcornell.edu website to define may versus shall.
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
think the word should be shall, I think it should be
Right.
may.
okay,
Because the way it reads, I'm not even kidding, the way this reads is if we lapse on the planning board and we don't approve the site plan review, it says you have to now give them a occupancy certificate,
okay,
because we've lapsed,
okay. So
not the
then,
intent.
so then to my point, and if it's not the will of the board, that's fine. Do you want any involvement in the process prior to the issuance of occupancy?
Only if a site plan is required.
I honestly believe that there should be some, because if there is paperwork that hasn't been paid up or anything, then, you know, a phone call
Yeah.
to Carrie, I think, would be a good thing. Are we all set to?
I'm actually saying that I think a site visit by a planning board member would be appropriate.
Okay.
That's, I think that would mean that we're all working together, you're
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah,
process.
I think that'd be a good
So,
idea.
you know, you're the one who issued the site plan, you approved it, but I wouldn't want to go back to a meeting, so I think, you know, if you designate either chair or designee, I would love to come out and look at make sure it's in compliance with the site plan.
Not a bad idea.
No.
Okay. Is that where this goes? We say, it still doesn't change, doesn't change this, really. No,
It doesn't, it would just be a procedural
it's procedural.
item on my part, but I want to make sure that you're aware that that would be my intent going forward.
I think that'd be a good idea,
I think it would be a great idea.
yeah.
Okay.
So the only thing we wanted to change in here was make the shall a may.
Shall, may, yeah.
Where it doesn't tie, I mean, we don't do that, but if somebody wanted to be really difficult, they'd say, no, the planning board hasn't done anything, it's been 60 days, now according to this, you need to give me a permit.
Right,
Like, oh yeah, that's what that says.
right.
It should be may, not shall.
Okay. Right, then the other thing, which is perhaps more important than what we just discussed, is the fact that 5421 specifically discusses building permits and occupancy permits, but 5412 does not retrigger a building permit.
Say that again?
5412 does not trigger a building permit.
Parking lot or municipal institution, commercial, industrial, multiple. The expansion of.
Right. I don't have any jurisdictional oversight through the building code for parking lot expansions.
Okay.
So that 5412, what's the catch for that?
I think that falls off of the planning board.
It's
Right
just-
now,
it's
the way it's written, it
just-
does.
Just a site plan.
Right,
It's just a site plan.
Okay, so all the more reason that what you just said, that one of the planning board members
right,
should attend a meeting or
Right.
an inspection or whatever.
right. But I just
To
want you,
make sure that the parking spaces that are required are there, and whatever else is,
but more importantly, if someone wants to expand a parking lot without touching the building, then there is absolutely no trigger for me to be involved.
Yeah, right now, the only thing we do is site plan. And
Right.
then it just goes out into
Right.
the wild,
Right.
and there's no loop back.
So I'm not looking for any more to do, but I just don't know how this is going to be captured. 'Cause the-
Can we do procedurally?
Yeah, with every time a site plan is put in front of us, we loop Jim in. You'll catch everything.
Right, but, and I don't drive around.
Regardless of whether you need to be included or not, you might say, I don't need to look at this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I don't want to be involved. I'm saying that right now, the biggest trigger for this is the building permit. But no one needs a building permit
Right.
to expand a parking lot.
They don't? What if
It's not in the building code.
but what if it's like over 10 spaces?
It's not in the building code.
Not in the code at
It's
all?
not in the building code. Parking spaces are not in the building code except for handicap spaces. It's the
Right.
only thing in the building code.
it's only on a site plan.
It's only in our zoning bylaws or our bylaws. So I do have some skin in the game as a zoning officer, But I would like more involvement by the planning board, especially with that, where a building permit's not required.
Yeah.
Well, I think
that's why I think
we
if we-
should info you on the things regardless, and you determine if you wanna be involved.
And vice versa.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Procedurally, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Procedurally, the building commissioner is involved because he's required to be notified of any site plan application coming through. So if someone was expanding their parking lot,
As
you would
long-
be getting a copy of that application.
Yes,
And then, my thought is, if they're expanding their parking lot, then you become involved, because then you wanna make sure they have the handicap, right?
if it's applicable. Yeah, if they have a
Is
building,
it always applicable?
only if they have a building that is, that the public, is
Handicap
invited into,
accessible.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can handle procedurally and just info you on the ones that don't trigger
Okay.
building.
The only time that I get kind of confused here is if somebody is trying to expand their parking spaces and it falls into wetlands, so they're gonna do it and not even call us, not even let us know.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean,
That's the,
it's a small town, but I think we need to share the responsibility, because I don't have any jurisdiction over the parking spaces or the parking lot. So I don't know if it's a thing where, when you organize, maybe you can recommend that one of the members might be the point person for site plan, that's all. If they can do the inspections before occupancy permit is issued, and they could be my point of contact. If we have someone out there who's doing a parking lot, didn't notify you, then, we can have, or do you want it to go through the chair? Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we can go through the chair,
Okay,
that's fine,
okay,
whoever that might be.
okay.
Or a designee, because our chair is, sometimes he's gone a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, so, because honestly, if, yeah, and Jeff, great, I would love for it to be you, but if it's one of these things where I drive by somewhere and someone's doing a parking lot, I'd like to be able to say, hey, do you have a minute? Can you come out and take a look at this, you know?
Okay.
So,
Mr. Woods, would you like to be that
Might
person?
be like, yeah, in case you're out to sea,
It's been known to happen. Okay. Yeah, Woody, if you wanna be the designee, we can probably just,
Okay. Well, I'm usually around. Well, Dan's around a lot too, so.
okay. All right, so, yeah, we can definitely make that happen.
all right, perfect.
Okay. Anything else on?
No, and then when it comes time, yeah, let's just presume that we have a site plan, we have a
Yep.
site plan approval, we go through the whole process.
Yep.
My Oxy permit will not allow me to add you to that, but procedurally, I would like a member of your board to come out and take a look at it and just make sure that everything meets the requirements of the site plan,
Okay,
just so we have another set of eyes looking at it.
perfect. Sounds good to me. I think that's a great idea. I like communication.
Yep.
I don't have any other questions for you until 5440, unless you had something
Nope,
before that.
I'm good until 5440.
So 5440, we just want to make sure we got the right standard
Okay,
on 5441
okay,
with drawing
Yep.
dimensions. Because I think we change on top and we have a different one on the bottom there. 5441.
yeah, I don't really know if we need to define it that much, I really don't.
Yeah, it's really like, we're,
Yeah, I
down
think
to
if I were an
the
engineer
minutia.
reading this, I'll say you're all over the place. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
it's like, oh, you want 1 equals 40, and you
Right.
want, then you want 1 equals 20,
right,
and like, what's it gonna be?
yeah. I'm okay with, simply inserting maybe the standard scale size or something of that, but
Just that language.
that's it, yeah,
Yeah, because that is,
Yeah.
we actually have that in one of the comments, reflect standard scale.
right.
So, yeah, so,
Yeah, there you go, right,
yeah, so 6 separate plans
Yeah.
prepped at standard scale.
yes.
And just,
And they may call and ask what that is, and
we're
then we
like, I
can,
don't know, it was in the previous revision.
right, yeah.
We got rid of it. Okay. All right. Sound okay, Carrie?
At standard scale?
Yeah.
or such other scale, right? As may be approved by the planning board.
There
There
you
you
go.
go,
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah, look at that. Yeah, the words are already there. Love it. All right, so the next time we your name here, it's all the way down in 5445. This is about the DIS. And if you have any idea what the threshold or
Well,
trigger for something typically
About
is.
5442?
Okay, let's go back. 5442. What do you got?
You have another may instead of shall?
Yeah, I've got every shall underlined.
Okay,
Let me see, 5442, yeah, the site plan may be accompanied by a written statement, so indicating the estimated time to complete. So this depends on the situation. Shall is a requirement, and may is
yeah. I
depending
think
on
that's a good idea.
case-by-case basis. So that
That's a
we
good idea.
definitely want that to be a may, not a shall.
Mhm.
Yeah, good catch. I was focused on the Jim Aguirre ones. Okay, so 5445, the impact statement, what's the, this stand for again? The development impact
Development
statement.
impact statement,
Development impact statement. So,
that's defined in our bylaw.
right, but what we don't know is, and this could be a conversation for another day, it's really a question, do we have any idea what typical threshold is? Like, when do we kick that off?
Yeah, it's all over the place. It depends on the local municipality.
Okay,
I think the DIS is really
I've never seen one.
involved.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can tell you in most municipalities, they look at those as being anti-development.
okay,
So it all depends on what the future of Dayton is. What do you want for it? Do you
Okay.
want development or not? I know at least one member on the board does, so, those are looked at typically as being anti-development.
okay.
'Cause
Yeah, they're very extensive, very
involved.
detailed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of what we thought. It's really up to what's happening and what the project is.
Right.
Okay.
Didn't we have a question, I don't know if you guys, correct me if you covered this while I was away, but part of the development impact statement requires the developer to provide, impact on the school system. Things that we as a planning board can't use as a reason to approve or deny, that are obviously a concern to the town.
Actually, I don't know, you can. You can. It's only 40B that has exemptions from you applying those. 40B has language within its comprehensive permitting that says you cannot discriminate based on those items. But
Okay.
if you want to control the development in your community, you most certainly can under the auspices of the planning board. Now, it can be challenged in court if you're too strict, and then it would be up to a judge through the appeals process as to whether or not they thought you were being reasonable or not. DISs are typically put in there for very, very large developments that would have a severe impact. If Walmart wanted to go in where the golf course used to be, that would require a DIS, because that's gonna completely change Dayton.
But a 40B doesn't, could be just as big, but doesn't have to provide a
Because under the
development impact
Affordable
statement.
Housing Act, there are protections, because all municipalities in the Commonwealth need to meet the 10% affordable housing threshold. Most municipalities like Dayton do not meet that threshold. So that's why 40Bs come in. And the reason developers use 40Bs, they're not a walk in the park. Mrs. Goulart knows, there's a lot to them. But they do offer a lot of exemptions for the developer. And a DIS would be one of them.
Okay. I guess the other items there, Carrie, we had a bunch of other comments there, about changing the section 53, I'm still looking at 5445, 5300, changing that to 5340. It should actually still be 5300 because it's a whole section.
Okay.
And I don't think we need to say above, because it's 5 pages before.
Strike that.
Yeah, strike the word above.
Should be removed, or you,
The word above should be removed.
should be, okay,
Yeah, that should be stricken.
okay.
when you reference a subsection or a section, that's understood.
Okay.
Then, 5450, waiver of compliance. We've had, many applicants come to us and, we've asked them to put it in writing. And one thing I put in here is consider amending, and I don't know if we're gonna go into all this with Jim with you
Yeah,
here, but, consider amending this bylaw that requests can be made verbally. And we can have them request it verbally, or we can have somebody show up with a site plan, not have what it needs, reject it, they gotta go home and send an email, which is really all it is, they have to go through the bylaws. Or it can be requested verbally. That was something I threw out in one of our previous meetings. Or do we want to leave the words the way they are right now? This requires it in writing. You can't show up and say, respectively request waiving of section, whatever. It's gotta be in the application.
I'd be for it staying in writing,
Okay.
cause then you can, 7 planning boards later, we could just be dealing with a lot of he said, she said.
Well, it's in the minutes.
But it's in the decision.
It's in the
It's in
decision
the
as well.
site plan decision that your board makes. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, it's trying to be a little more favorable to the developer so that they can come in and not try to look at every single part of this thing, come in, have the discussion with the board, let the discussion evolve and say, okay, here's what I would like waivers for. I think that was the intent,
The intent was to
So-
be developer friendly.
right? Or business
I
friendly,
mean, I guess if it's in the minutes, it's in writing.
right?
It doesn't,
And it's in the
no,
decision.
it doesn't not get
As long
documented.
as
It
it's
gets
like,
documented.
Joe developer walks into the town hall on a Monday morning and has a verbal conversation, yeah, sure, you're all set.
No.
If
it's a
site
meeting.
plan is applicable, site plan approval is applicable, then there will be a motion by this board to approve the site plan, and whatever the board decides is
be
appropriate
at
will
that
be
time.
captured, so.
Right.
I just referenced the thing we did a couple summers ago where applicant came in, he had most of what he needed, but he had to go home and send us an email to waive a number of sections where we could have easily just had the decision right then
Right.
and saved
Yeah, it
saved a
would've
month.
made sense at that
Would have
point.
saved a month. So that's why I thought it would be best if we made that a little more flexible. Obviously, it would be great if they showed up and had everything ready, but if they, for some reason, don't have something, we can discuss it and vote on whether or not we want to do. It's still up to us to approve the waiver, waiving
Sure,
a section.
sure,
It
yeah.
doesn't,
And-
it's not automatic. We can say, based on the situation, not appropriate, and this package is incomplete. However, it also gives us some leeway to
No, I mean, it makes sense that way that you're explaining it, and ultimately will be in writing, so.
And I don't think everyone will take advantage of that. That's really just to help out some of the smaller businesses. At least that's how I read it. If you've got somebody coming in and building a 10 or 15,000 square foot industrial building, they're gonna have all their ducks in a row. They know what they need waivers from, if they need waivers, so,
Yeah, we've seen that too. Somebody shows up and they're upfront about
Right.
bing,
Right.
bing, bing, bing.
right,
Okay.
And a waiver isn't granted without a vote.
right.
So the board
Right,
would
so,
have to
yeah,
vote.
so it's always an actionable item anyway that's
Correct.
recorded, so, yeah.
All right, so that comment's already there, so if you want to roll that in, Gary.
Okay.
Okay. All minutes should be submitted. Specific waivers submitted, ready, okay. I think those are just our notes. Why do we have or verbally down there? Have it on- Oh, that's up top. Okay.
Which
never
one?
mind. We say or, it's kind of hard to figure out where the comments tie to in the
I
text.
know,
here.
it's a little difficult. I think the next one was, for the minor site plan.
Yep. 5460.
You were thinking of changing it to or.
Oh, okay, or will not generate the need for more 10 parking spots. So, right now it says applicants for permits to build, alter, or expand any non-residential building structure or use any district where such construction will not exceed a total gross floor area of 2,000 square feet or will not generate the need for more than 10 spots. It wasn't, and didn't make sense. So I thought or made more sense, so that's why we said make that an or. Okay.
I don't have an opine on that, that's fine.
Okay. Aggregation of all applications made within 5 years, prior previous calendar years, and we're wondering if there's any way of tracking that, or it's just
So-
we have to have a really good memory.
No, my permit link software is very easy to query for a specific address, and you
Okay.
can find out how many permits.
Okay.
I'm presuming permits here in this context is building permits, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, applications. would be
Applications,
building
yes.
permits, right?
Yep.
If we're fixing this, do we want to change that from application to building permits? Because you can
Well, it
submit
says applications for permits in the first sentence.
permits to build, okay. All right, I think that's
I'm just
fine.
reusing the word applications because it's
Okay,
generic. Do we get paid by word letter, word change? Okay. Anything else between here and 5480? Jim?
I do not.
Okay. And, but I don't know how to make this actionable. Site plan approval shall lapse 1 year from the grant thereof. Way to track this through the, same thing, through the permitting, online permitting process. I guess if somebody gets a, what's this, site plan, right?
Yeah, it says site plan, so they won't have the same date.
Okay.
So a site plan will date the building permit.
Okay. I don't know how we keep track of that.
And if someone has an active site plan and they'd have an active building permit, typically all of the permits that are associated with that don't lapse until they bring it to certificate of occupancy. There is a definition in the building code that says they can have a lapse of a building permit, and then the permit would be revoked, but it needs to meet very specific criteria.
Got it. Okay.
Basically, you fall off the face of the earth and no one sees you, you know?
Man, a few years, you come by, you try to get a permit, they're like, sorry.
It's actually 6 months,
Is it 6 months? Okay.
yeah. But it's very vague. You can come in and put one nail in the wall and you worked on it.
It's terrible. Terrible, I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
Joe, you wouldn't do that, no, I know.
Never would.
No.
Couple of years would be.
That's all I had for 5400.
No, I think that's great.
Okay.
And we've never really had this dialogue, so I appreciate you inviting me in.
All right. Thank you very much, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Next is solar.
Our favorite.
What do you favorite?
That's the other part.
I have a couple of comments on solar, so I'm gonna stay here, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. Solar. Good.
Oh, feel free to jump in. We're having a solar bylaw conversation, so
That's what I heard.
is your question solar bylaw related?
No, the permitting process.
Okay, come on.
The what process?
Would you, it is not my intent this evening to open up a can of worms. Recent developments have indicated that there is a need for the planning board to work closely with the PAC to review the process for permitting of solar projects in the town of Dayton.
Work closely with the who? I'm sorry.
PAC is the permitting and compliance team.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
The building official, board of health agent, conservation agent,
That's your weekly meetings that you guys have?
office manager, and the town administrator.
Got it. Okay. Sorry.
That is all I'll say in regards to that.
Okay.
I'll let Mr. Aguirre speak in more detail. The other items I'll save for public input, because they have nothing to do
With
the
the
topic,
bylaw
yeah.
specifically. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. So,
So,
yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
And we already have a representative.
Right, so I need a little more information on that.
Work more closely. Maybe your seat needs to be closer to theirs at the meeting.
It-
You're sitting too far away.
There's a problem.
Closely. So I work very closely, Mr. Hull. I'm not sure how much more closely I can,
Would you care to come to our next PAC meeting, and we can discuss it with you?
Actually, I've put a few emails of recent events
Okay,
project that I'm referring to, without
Okay.
So
getting
this-
into details.
This
okay,
came to you in the form of a complaint
yes.
that the planning board or?
No, 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 it's not a complaint pointing a finger at the planning board. There is obvious either miscommunication or some lapses in the presenting of information to all the parties involved of who has responsibility for certain aspects of the permitting process.
Okay,
And as I said a minute ago, I mean, I'll be glad to read the email.
no,
I prefer not to.
okay, I understand exactly what you're saying. I think it's appropriate. I'll address it at the next PAC meeting.
Okay,
It can be easily, it's an easy thing to fix.
okay, understood.
Um,
Okay, so,
Thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Hull. So, 4600, solar electric generating facility. So this already went to special meeting, special town meeting last year. But there are some things I wanted to refine further after some further consideration. Did you have specific questions you wanted to hit on this? Because I had some modifications I wanted to make, but
Yeah, no, go
I'm
ahead.
not, I'm not doing anything until 4659.
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but why don't I listen to yours and
Okay.
if you have to go back, we'll go back. all right?
Okay, so, I forget why I had a change bar in 4631, do you remember? I'm looking right now. Oh, maybe, you know what? I bet you it's in your hard
Our
copy.
discussion in the last meeting. I think it was just you, Joe, and I at the last meeting.
Right, 4630, why am I not seeing it here in my?
Was that because of the definition in the back? There was a conflicting definition in the back,
Yeah, that's right.
You had
Okay,
me
yeah.
remove-
Yep, thank you.
one of the definitions in the back.
Right, 4631, if you go to the definition for large scale, that's right. We have the old definition and the new definition. The old definition never changed, never got removed.
The old one wasn't,
Where are you going now?
Inadvertently left.
The new one was
So if
put
you look
in.
at the glossary, page 81, if you leave your finger here on page 48, go to page 81, and we accidentally left the old large-scale mounted solar photovoltaic installation paragraph in there. And that's the old definition. The new definition is right on top of it. So we just forgot to delete that paragraph. So what needs to happen is, this paragraph needs to go away.
Okay.
It inadvertently got left in when we had the edit. So it's a glossary change. And we should italicize. Okay, I like that idea. So that was just a definition. So if you look on page 52 on the bottom, 4659, for large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installations, I wanted to push for side yard and rear yard, instead of being 75 feet of depth for both and 100 feet from any dwelling on another parcel, I wanted to change those numbers to 100 and 200. This is where we had a conversation about
Change it from 75 to 100?
saving it from 75 and 100 to 100 and 200. So 100 feet to a property line and 200 feet from any dwelling on another parcel as measured from the closest point of the array. And I wanted to put a period there, scratching the words, or any accessory structure to the dwelling.
So from 100 to 200 feet from the property line.
No,
From a dwelling, 200
so
feet.
from first increasing the buffer to the property line from 75 feet to 100 feet.
Yeah, that's not a big deal.
It's not huge. But changing 100 feet from the
next
closest point of the array
to the dwelling.
to a dwelling. Now, and I wanted to get rid of the words "or any accessory structure to the dwelling," which means fences and roads don't count in that 200 feet. It's the array itself that we're concerned with. You have an array, it's sitting here, You're not gonna see a road because it's flat. You still have a vegetative buffer requirement. You have a fence you gotta put around there. So I don't wanna add road, fence, and, you know, other things to that number. I wanted to say, my concern is about visual, the intent here is to make this more resident-friendly. So looking at, you know, you looked at, I think I can say his name, Mr. Christofoli's property. Or I looked at where his dwelling is relative to that array, and the number 200 seems like it would have made more sense. His house is set way back next to the property line. So I said, okay, that's kind of an extreme case, because he's only like 15, the minimum is 15, I think it's like maybe 25 feet off the back of his property line, so he's closer than most. So I looked at my neighborhood and other neighborhoods in town. Typically, people are like 50 feet from the back property line, 50, sometimes 60 feet, depending on how things are arranged. So if I said 200 feet, that means you gotta figure out where the array's gonna be, where the road's gonna be, the fence is gonna be, all these things you're laying out, and it winds up giving you a lot more buffer if you're abutting one of these things.
I think you eliminate a lot of people from being able to do it by putting it at 200 feet.
Well,
Don't forget that in the past, it was 100 feet to the fenced area.
right.
So usually the fence area to the array, there's quite a bit of space there. So, yes, he isn't, saying to increase maybe 50 additional feet. I don't think it's gonna be much more than that. And it will be much better for,
It's
And in some cases, we can negotiate a bigger buffer depending on where it is, where the house is located, you know, who the developer is,
And the one thing, and I see your concern, and he had the same concern last time, until we got rid of the last words, but the other thing too, the catch, is D, waivers.
waivers.
Okay, now, I want us to be, resident-friendly with solar farms and all this, but at the same time, if there are situations that present themselves that are extreme situation, whatever, well, it's right here. Notwithstanding the aforementioned setback requirements, the planning board, as appropriate, shall have the authority to waive setback requirements based on site-specific conditions. So this gives us leeway. But what this does is it stops people from putting things too close to fence lines, too close to abutting. So it sets a
Yeah.
standard.
I'm thinking more of, not the commercial application, because typically those are big pieces of land, and so they get a few less panels.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yes.
It's like, say and Joe knows kind of the layout of my property. Let's say I wanted to put one, and it has to be X amount from my neighbor, my
That's
neighbor's
different from
property.
residential.
this
That's a small scale.
That's small scale.
that's small scale.
Okay.
Large
This
scale,
is large scale.
This is enormous.
So then,
yeah.
And so let's discuss that, but let me tell you my second thing I also want to change. I want to increase the vegetative buffer from 30 feet to 50 feet.
I love that.
I'm fine with that.
Those are the changes I wanted to make, and I want to italicize all the glossary terms. I love that idea. I want to italicize everything now.
So I have two comments. Do you want to go to the board?
Yeah,
first?
I wanted to say, if there's battery storage involved in any of these arrays, then all of that can change.
Right, but that's specifically called out in C, energy storage installations. That's a separate item.
Separate item?
Yeah,
Okay, so that,
that doesn't exclude that.
Right, so I just wanted to clarify, if you drop the last few words from subsection 3,
Yep,
after array or any accessory structure to the dwelling, I will tell you that if the structure has array components within it, I will consider that part of the array.
that's
So-
fair.
so-
We just wanted to make sure
Right.
they didn't think we meant the fence, because you looked it up, and
Right.
the fence is
No,
considered an
I
accessory
agree with
structure.
you, I agree with you. I just want you to know that if someone's putting up a equipment pad,
Yep,
that, I'm gonna look for that setback from that equipment pad,
okay,
because that's part of the array,
okay.
okay? The other thing I'll say to Mr. Woods' point is it's gonna be very hard for you to increase the setback if the bylaw says a specific setback, unless there's extenuating circumstances. So I think if the board is inclined, I would go with the larger setback and then have the ability to waive it less if you wanted to.
Then the other way around.
Going the other way around is gonna be really difficult to do.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what Chris has said there.
Yeah.
I don't know, so that's what I'm throwing out, and it seems extreme, but
No,
I
no,
know
it's
when I
not
looked at Mr. Christofoli's property, I'm sure he would have liked another 30 feet. And I'll tell you what, on the, what's it, 19 acres? How big is that property behind him? It would have been a drop in the bucket, it would have been nothing.
Oh, there's 21 acres.
21 acre, yeah, the
Clear
21
cut.
acre array, which, it's not all array, but having these additional buffers would have really been kind of meaningless to the solar company.
They really fought us tooth and
It
nail
would-
on
it
that.
would've-
too.
it
We
would've-
tried to get another 50 feet out of them, and they just wouldn't budge.
Cause it was in the bylaw.
Because it was in the bylaw
Yeah, right.
that way. So I say 50 feet of vegetative buffer, and I want to push for the 100, 200, and then get rid of the or accessory structure to the dwelling. So I think that would be a winner. And I think a lot of folks in town are pretty happy with that.
Right. We're here for the people, the residents,
We all are.
yeah.
We're here for the people, but we also have to think about that, that's revenue that's coming into the town too.
There's a balance, got to strike a balance.
Yeah.
That's why the waiver thing strikes the balance.
Yeah, absolutely, I have no. What I actually said in the last meeting that we talked about, and Jeff brought this up, is that if you have somebody that comes in with, let's say, 10 acres, and the land is shaped, say, 500 feet of front, and 1,000 feet, whatever the dimensions are, you take 200 feet away from that, on that length, you just knocked out a bunch of acres. You do the same thing on the opposite side, so you've decreased that to 100 feet in
So
in the
now
middle.
it's like smack in the middle of the property.
Exact, but it's only 100 feet wide.
Right.
So whoever owns that property just lost a lot of money.
Yeah,
And that's the thing, I like the idea of having the waivers. That way we can negotiate, providing that there is no,
We can plan things accordingly and don't just
I don't know.
use a square where a circle peg fits kind of thing, but
I don't know who here has been up to Arujo's solar array to see what 21 acres of clear cut looks like. It's enough to make anyone sick who loves this earth the way I do. 21 acres clear cut. You could put Gillette Stadium there. When I went up there, I was just blown away. I could not believe.
but they didn't cut on the sides, the 50-foot buffer, that's not cut.
No, but there's 21 acres that are clear cut. And I don't know if we could create a bylaw that says how many acres we would allow someone to clear cut. Because to look at what was done up there is sickening.
What
it's private property though.
Oh, it's private property. But, are we gonna allow solar companies
I
to
hear
come
what you're
to our
saying.
town and cut down every tree?
I hear what you're saying. The problem is the Attorney General's office has to ratify whatever we approve at town meeting. And I
Right.
can tell you that they are very proactive when it comes to
Oh, I
alternative
understand that.
energy. So we've had some language rejected, so I think we've done, so I just want to make sure you understand, I'm sure Kerry has shared with you. In some of our past meetings, we meet with companies from all over the country. And we've been told on more than one occasion that Dayton is extremely proactive with their nomenclature and their bylaws. We're light years ahead of other communities. So to hear that we're doing that, little old Dayton tells us that we're doing our jobs. Because for someone to come from another state, especially the West Coast, and say, you guys, your bylaw is well-written, you've got a lot in there, we know exactly what we can and cannot do, I think that's great. The other thing is, it's not a walk in the park. We got a lot of restrictions in there. And we still have 8 solar farms. So it's not deterring them. we have a lot of land and we have the infrastructure, the grid. That's why we have a lot of solar farms.
Oh, yeah.
So I think what you're doing is great. I actually have a couple more things I'd like to add, but, that in particular, I would just go with the more restrictive setback and then know that you could waive it. To your point, if you have a unique property like that, then as long as the abutting properties wouldn't be adversely impacted, then I think a waiver would be appropriate.
There you go, that's my whole
Yeah,
point.
I mean, that's when you have the abutters who are involved in the.
Right, I mean, if it abuts wetlands, who cares, you know,
Yeah.
go with that.
Well, there'll be no dwelling though. There'll be no dwelling, but yeah, then you get the, yeah, okay. Okay, what else, Mr.
I'd like to see hours of operation in our bylaw.
Hours of, for maintenance.
No, hours of operation for the project construction.
Right, we had a complaint today at Stormwater about hours of operation.
Yeah, I had an email that went out
Yeah.
today about that, so,
How is that applicable in a bylaw like this?
7 to 5.
yeah,
No,
so,
but I think it just, I understand, I agree, it just
Pretty
like,
sure
it
it's
doesn't sound like it's
7.
a bylaw issue, it sounds like it would be
7?
more of another regulation, correct?
well, no, you're allowing them through special permit to do that project. You can certainly restrict the hours. I can tell you that it's very difficult for me to regulate the hours of operation. We've done it in other ways that perhaps, if challenged, would be difficult to enforce. But I've done it in such a way that people have listened and abided. However, I would like it to be right from Jump Street so that developers know what's expected of them.
I agree, the only problem is, a lot of times they get deliveries from out of state. And those drivers usually like to come in and drop their load or whatever, at whatever hours they show up. And they coordinate those things with them so that they can actually come in and things like that, so.
So that's ironic you're saying that, because the two complaints that we've received that have been the most impactful have been one specifically for that, which if you live right next door to it, doesn't matter, that's still intrusive. And the other one was physically working, making noise outside of the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I think that's a fair workday, a 12-hour workday. But if you're working after 7 p.m., you're impacting the neighborhood, and that's not right.
And I agree with
Yeah. So, again, if you had, just for instance, no work between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., that gives them a 12-hour workday.
Should that be in the safety environmental standards section?
Yes.
As I'm trying to figure out where it fits the best and.
Is that specific to solar, or is that?
Sorry?
Is that
You
specific
can-
to solar, or is that
Well, you
general
can,
for
you can make
any-
that general. Well, that section you're referring to is, what section were you referring
Well,
to?
this is still solar, 4660.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds like the issue.
Following
would be
standards
applicable.
shall
Well-
apply to any large-scale ground-mounted solar electric installations.
Yeah.
So you got
So
emergency
to
stuff.
clarify, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy, you too, I don't have here of any complaints other than solar facilities. I've never heard of a complaint about a business operating and impacting residents. I've never heard one, so I've been here.
If the developer knows we're gonna stick to those timelines, and they can
Right,
coordinate their deliveries and
Right.
such.
Can we add a section 4664, hours of operation
For construction.
for,
This is-
for
this is
construction?
the-
Well, construction and maintenance, right?
As far as I know, Clearway.
I think we
fairly
have to
compliant with Transportation
You can add a
deliveries.
Huh?
Clearway has. The complaint I received today was from another one.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure what you heard at Stormwater today, but it was for a different.
Right, I know Clearway's been on top of it.
Yep,
They got proper signs, and they've been doing a
Yeah.
good job with their deliveries.
right.
If we write down the hours of operation, we should also say on there, including deliveries to the site. Otherwise, that's not going to, because they're just gonna say, we're not doing any construction
Right.
work. We're just delivering stuff to you.
Right. And it
So-
really hasn't been an issue except for the last couple of projects, so that's why I haven't come to you before today with it. It's been pretty forthright, and people have been respectful of their neighbors, but we have two solar farms going on right now that have created complaints. And the one I received today, the gentleman was completely sympathetic to the fact that the developer has to get their project done. Frankly, he said to me, the sooner it's done, the sooner they're out of here, and we're just looking at panels. So I'm fine with all that. But the days are getting shorter, it's getting a little bit intrusive. I can't sit down and have supper with my family, because, you know, there's things going on, and I respect that. So I think we should nip it in the bud and just let them know what we expect of them.
Mrs. Goulart?
Along those lines, and in reference to the ones at the solar farm, and specifically today, biggest problem of enforcement is subcontractors. And the one on Brook Street, the gentleman that we deal with, Mr. Hafez, zoomed in today, and there was a complaint about vehicles being there. They seeded or reseeded the property, and I have the feeling it was a local contractor.
Okay.
Because I specifically said, it's a subcontractor, correct? Is this somebody you hired? And he said, yes. Another incident at that same location, the company that brings in the porta-johns turned up at some 6 o'clock in the morning. You can't do that. Again, it's a problem with dealing with subcontractors. And I will tell you this, other solar-related problems that are, whether it's stormwater or conservation, it is subcontractors who for some reason either don't get the word, and I know in one case it definitely was, nobody told them, so that created a big problem. But we've made it clear, you're responsible for your subcontractors. They're going to follow all the same rules. And so that's what we've run into with situations. But certainly, isn't somewhere in the bylaw or somewhere on record there are operational hours? Because we do tell them up front.
It's only in the mining bylaw.
It's
It's in the mining bylaw.
Oh, mining bylaw, okay. Well, that might be some, the other thing too is, I think a blanket bylaw, whether it's mining or stormwater or any kind of work that involves noise, especially heavy equipment or whatever, if the planning board bylaw can cover everything, there's one place to point and say, but that's it. That's what will be enforced. I know that the episode with the porta-johns, the supplier was told, if anyone shows up on that site before 7 a.m., we will immediately dismiss you, and if there are any fines, you're going to get them. So, it's difficult. When you talked about increasing distances, I think that's a good idea. You're only going to have 2 people that are really not going to benefit from that. Going forward, new solar farms will follow the new bylaws, okay? And I can certainly understand that. What we have there in 2 spots met the existing bylaws. But certainly, with what has come up, I think it's wise to make changes on that, because going forward, I mean, we don't know how many more we're going to have. But I will also tell you, regarding clear-cutting property, yeah, I've been there a number of times. There is hope, because there is legislation that's being in the process. All of a sudden, the legislature has realized the value of trees and how they clean the air. And there is legislation that relates to reforestation and management of existing woodlands. And I mentioned this at a selectmen's meeting because periodically it comes before the committee I'm on at MMA. We didn't meet this month, but there will be more of that coming. So I can certainly pass that on to Kerry. But that is something that through state legislation, there may be something to help relative to all communities and the kind of development that wipes out trees. So there's hope somewhere.
I just realized I did copy you this morning on that email, but you didn't get your emails today, so.
It cracks me up because we have plenty of cleared land already in this town. Plenty. But they don't want to put the panels there, they want to cut down trees. Just drives me crazy.
So can we add a 4664 as an
So I think you can,
Operating, hours of operation,
I can, 4650.
4664.
Can it be in the general and not in the
Well,
solar?
and that's what I was going to
Can it
suggest.
be in the general and not in just solar?
Is there a general somewhere?
I think,
There is no general, right?
not in the zoning bylaws.
Oh,
I
general
think-
regu-
I think
general
hours of
regulations.
operation is more appropriate as a general bylaw as opposed to a zoning bylaw.
General regulations?
The only
Excuse
thing
me.
I would say to that is that when you have a blanket bylaw, you now risk the chance of that bylaw being violated by a business who runs a third shift operation or something like that. So I think you really gotta be careful. If you're gonna make it a general statement, then you need to further define it so that we understand what we're actually, who's gonna be violating it.
Right, so that's what I was just looking up.
6:30.
Yeah, that's why I said earlier, I don't know of any complaints outside of developers for solar who have actually created complaints about their hours of operation. I haven't gotten any in the 13 years I've been here, unless,
How about this? When these developers come in and we approve a solar array, and we ask them to put a sign on the entrance of this, hours of operation are between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
so you're saying make it a condition of the permit?
Yeah.
I would just ask that it's a condition of every permit for solar, that's
I was
all.
gonna-
Okay, no, that's what I
Because
mean.
we can't discriminate against one or the other. I mean, I guess we could if the neighborhood required that. But I would ask that you, in every special permit that you grant in your decision, I would ask you for a condition.
That was gonna be my next suggestion.
That would fall
I-
under signage,
I think,
4652.
Well, it would be the condition, it would not
It
just
would be the
sign.
condition, so it would be in the, right,
These
it
are
would be
your
in
hours
the
of
decision.
operation.
It wouldn't even
plus
be in the
sign.
bylaw, Jeff.
No?
No, it would just be a condition. But you would have to make sure that every one that you permitted, you put that in as a condition.
Where would that be documented? In the
In,
regs?
in the decision.
In the decision?
In the decision, yeah.
Okay. All right. We use the word shall, not may.
You have to use the word shall.
Shall.
Shall,
It's the only way I can enforce it.
yeah, otherwise it's mother may I.
Right.
All right. I think we hit all of it.
I think so. Looked like it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Aguirre.
Thank
Is
you.
there anything else?
Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. You were wrong.
While we're on solar, I did speak to Kerry this
my
week.
first time.
Jeff, I spoke to Kerry this week about whether or not we could get a solar company, after they clear the land, to put up a fence before they start construction. Just for safety reasons and to keep people out. I don't know if we can do that, or we could just negotiate and ask them nicely, or could we make it a requirement?
So you're finding that on these arrays, they're putting the fence after they have the arrays up?
No, yeah, oh, yeah, that's when they're doing it, after the array's up.
Are you talking?
Right, there's no fence now up at Arujo's, and the array's almost all the way up. They're doing construction on Tremont Street,
There's no.
there's no fence up.
So would that be something that at site plan review, when they bring it in front of us, we just say, add temp construction fence to the plan and you're good to go?
Yeah, how's that get controlled?
I mean, they're gonna put the fence up anyway.
It's the same thing, it's a condition,
Yeah, but
it's another condition, but it's
You
more of
just-
a requirement.
add temp fence, cause they wouldn't put fence in, like, order of construction, fence would go at the end when they regrade and set the layout.
Well, they're gonna know their perimeter. I don't know, it's just a thought, because,
But we can ask for
you know, and
temp.
for safety reasons and other reasons too.
I mean, the only bad thing about that is that when they come in, when they start the construction and they put the fence in, that's a big expense for a fence.
Absolutely.
And to have that up front, you know, added to the
They
project.
have to put the fence up before they turn the power on.
No, I understand that, but that's towards the end. So if the project takes them a year, they don't have to pay for the fence up front. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at it as a construction.
Okay, well,
person.
right now, we have one resident in town that has to go to court because he was charged with trespassing. You know, and in the future, some young kids can go in there and play on the equipment, jump around and get hurt. You know, you see these things, you're walking down the road, you might wanna walk in there. Next thing you know, you could get charged with trespassing. So,
I mean, we can ask these people. I think that would be a nice thing to ask.
I mean, it's no different than, if you think about it, if the town of Dayton decided to redo this park, this track, this field, there would have to be a tent fence around it, no question. Same with the playground, so it's really not much different than most, yeah.
Well, I would agree with you, however, most of these are in remote places. So, and they're on private property. I see your point, fences are required, they want people to stay out of there post-construction. So to ask for it up front, I don't think would be a big ask. I can foresee some of the fence being damaged during construction because it happens. But I think that would be minor, versus the benefit it would do by keeping everybody out.
right.
So where would that fit? Where would that statement fit? I mean, is it a condition, just like everything else?
That would be
A condition of the construction,
yeah.
consideration for, at a minimum, a temp fence, while the project is being constructed. So I think that's probably.
Or, you know, they could put a permanent fence.
Yeah,
or a temp
that's why
fence.
it
I don't
says
think they wanna put up two fences.
At a minimum, a temporary fence.
They're gonna put the permanent fence up, they're not putting two fences.
Right.
At a minimum, a temporary fence during construction. I mean, if they want to put the permanent fence, put
I
permanent
mean,
fence.
I've been up to the solar site behind Arujo several times now. And they just drive up and down that road. So they're not driving around the perimeter, they're not gonna damage the fence, they're not gonna, you know, the fence is not gonna interfere with their construction.
Yep.
That I can see.
Okay.
Well,
None of the arrays, the panels are anywhere near the fence.
the one that has damaged fence, I guess, has been fixing and refixing and fixing, and we know which one that one is, so,
Yeah.
yeah. They have damaged the fence a lot.
Huh.
I mean, yeah.
How's the fence getting damaged?
Well, because they had to put loom in after they took it all out.
Well, yeah, because
Proceed,
you're
you
not-
know, so-
You don't do your final grid in the beginning.
You're moving excavators around, you're moving front end loaders, all of that
What the
stuff.
site is in the beginning could be very different.
Well, I'm just trying to prevent anyone from being hurt or arrested.
No, I know, but
You know?
I guess I didn't realize, I guess I didn't think of the private versus public property aspect of it.
And the other thing is
So
they
why
shouldn't,
are people that live there, or that do not live there, going on private property anyway?
well, it's not posted properly. There's not a sign every 50 yards that say trespassing.
But if someone just like, I don't have those signs in my yard, if somebody just
I've been
walked.
in your yard, you didn't see me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe he just admitted trespassing on camera. All right, so, Carrie, what's next on for these two items? So, are we gonna roll those in and plan some kind of public hearing, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I will go through and make the revisions, and then we can start scheduling a public hearing for it.
And do we have time before the September 20th date to do that and get it on special? Because I thought the special
I have
closed right around food mid-September time.
Yeah, we're okay. I have the placeholder in there for the warrant, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Even though it goes in the warrant, we can still have the public hearing, even if it's a day after, because if there's any changes, they can be changed on the floor at the town meeting. So, we're okay as long as, yeah, I have the placeholder already.
Okay. Mrs. Goulart, was there something?
I think Nancy had a question.
Yeah, Mrs. Goulart, did you have anything further? on the subject?
I got some stuff under public input, mostly questions.
One-
Projects, but I did want to comment that on the fencing thing,
Yep.
Brook Street was totally fenced. We even wanted fences around the basins. We decided not to do that, which would have been a fenced area within the fenced area. July the 5th, Mr. Ferry and I went down there and did another site inspection before the latest seeding and whatever else was going on, because we wanted to determine if there had been an improvement in ground cover to stall the rain. And there was, but there's still the need to do more seeding. But, Mr. Ferry had the code, so we could get in through the gate. But literally, either one of us could have climbed over or under or through. That's not the point. The rest of it was fenced totally.
Okay.
But when we were down in the southeast corner, there were broken panels because somebody threw rocks. And some of the rocks are still on top of those panels. There's also animal waste that appeared to be dog waste. So it's clear that if people want to trespass, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's no man's land, but there was evidence of that. So fencing is a really tough thing. The only good thing I can say specifically about Clearway is, once it's done, the way to get through it without going through someone else's property is that road. And I don't see that, I'll call it the farm road that runs between properties. I don't see that being allowed by the property owners of the business. So that might be a deterrent, but the fencing thing is tough all around.
Okay, thank you. All right, so, we'll get a public hearing, scheduled for those, the 4,600 and the 5,400, and, plan is to get that into the special, so looking forward to that. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for July 19th, 2023. Somebody can please make a motion.
I'll make that motion.
All right, make a motion, second.
Good enough.
Second. Chris, Joe made the motion, Chris seconded. They fought it out. They've been very busy motioning and seconding tonight.
It's the only thing we've done.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I abstain.
You abstain? Oh, you went
Oh,
out. Okay. Did you review the minute? Did you review the minutes?
No, I did not.
Okay, all right, very well. Mrs. Easterday, do we have any additional correspondence?
We do not.
Do not. Public input.
Just one quick item. I have two, but Kevin took care of one about placement.
Okay. Selectman Hull.
I heard some doubt and questioning in regards to engineer or peer review engineer.
Yes, sir.
I just want to be assured of planning board that matter will be resolved by the Board of Selectmen by the end of September, the latest.
So should
We have applicants, we will be interviewing, we will be selecting.
Okay.
Okay.
For a town engineer?
Well, it'll be a peer review
Oh, peer
engineer.
reviewer. No, the question was more to do with, should the word say town engineer, because we don't have one on staff.
No, it won't be a town engineer.
Yeah,
per se.
okay.
It'll be
It'd be a
peer
peer
review engineer
engineer firm or
firm, yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that all? That was easy. Mrs. Goulart?
Great minds, because I wanted to talk about what he just said.
Okay.
So, I'm asking you to consider, I get scribbles here everywhere. You're talking about a town engineer, which we technically don't have.
Right.
So if that bylaw could read town engineer or consulting engineer, if we don't have a town engineer, you're saying it'll be a consulting engineer. If we eventually hire a town engineer and the town engineer is not available, he's out sick because of whatever, a consulting engineer can be brought in.
Okay.
So I'm only suggesting you consider that to handle both instances.
Yeah, we're just trying to
Okay.
figure out what the best language would be.
Yeah.
We don't want to get rid of the word town engineer. I want to add
Right.
something that.
But you also want to address the issue of somebody saying, you don't have a town engineer. And it's going to say something like, or consulting engineer, which means they're it for the town.
Yeah.
That point. The questions I have relate to subdivisions. When do you expect Harborcrest to, I don't know, come before the whatever? because it's alive, my understanding is.
They brought plans of the sewer yesterday.
Arborcrest is with the ZBA, because that's a 40B, not the planning board.
So there's nothing at all involved
They are coming before the ZBA on Tuesday evening.
next week?
Yep, just to give the board an update, not filing anything at the moment. They're just giving them an update to tell us what's going
How
on.
long have they been around?
About 20 years.
Oh, my goodness,
Yeah.
okay.
Malik is no longer with them. Malik Construction.
Oh, that's not who's building it?
No.
Okay.
I spoke with Mr. Glass yesterday.
Well, that's not to say that they won't come on.
He said no, he told me that yesterday.
Mr. Glass, Attorney Glass?
Joshua Glass, yeah, the
He
attorney.
represents them in
Yes.
Yeah,
That's the same.
Forest Hills?
Yeah,
it's the
same guy.
same. They're both DI trust.
Yeah.
But Forest Hills is not a 40B.
No.
No.
Where is that? They appealed it.
It's
Where
in
is
court.
that? So it's under appeal. Okay, and, the other one that I had a question about was, the battery storage facility on Maynard Lane. Is that, other than it's been discussed, or the word is out there and
They've briefed us, they've come and they've showed us presentations, but
they're not coming looking for any board to act on it?
They
That-
haven't,
No
they
application.
haven't officially filed any application.
no application.
Oh, okay, all right.
But they're building the transfer station up there as we speak, but they're doing that in Rehoboth.
Transfer
No.
station. Where,
That's a
transfer
separate.
station, what?
Yeah, to where they take the power off the grid to put into the batteries.
At the
And
high
then-
tension lines, right?
Yeah, and then they're gonna take it out from the batteries and shoot it back off into the grid, so it's a transfer station, I guess you'd call it.
Pump and dump.
Really?
Yeah, and they're building that right now.
So is it possible that the battery part gonna be in Dayton and the transfer or the mechanism is in Rehoboth?
That's what it appears to be, yes.
Because, I had gotten an earful from somebody from Rehoboth, what are you people doing? And I said, nothing that I'm aware of. Other than I knew it was
Did
something
he
talked
complain
about.
about me giving his wife a hard time?
No, he didn't mention any names.
Okay.
No, no. Cause I just said, I know where he lives, I'll tell you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public input? All right, hearing none. Make a motion
I'll
to
make
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Good night, cable, YouTube.
Thank you, board.